Hello and welcome to the third annual Sex Tech EU Conference 2021. I'm Alexis Smiley-Smith and very happy to be here today as your host. I would love to take a moment to thank Wolf Summit for their partnership this year. And of course, none of this would be possible without our sponsors, SSH.com, Handy, and Besharam. Play more, shame less. Today's panel is all about the business of sex, creating content for fun, film, and frolicking, and of course, making money. And I would love to introduce our moderator for the panel, Rachel Braun Scherl. And Rachel is the co-founder and managing partner and chief vagipreneur of Spark Solutions for Growth. So we're very pleased to have her moderating this panel. And with that, actually, I will just let Rachel take over. Thank you, Rachel, and welcome. And thanks for being here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Braun Scherl, and I'm delighted to be moderating today's panel, which is focused on one of my very favorite topics, which is the business of sex. I come to be here after a long career that I'm still in, working on growing businesses from menstruation to menopause. I work with lots of different companies, helping them to drive top-line growth. I'm an angel investor, an author, and a speaker, and I am delighted to be surrounded by three powerhouses who are driving the content and creativity that is forming quite part of the conversation around the business of sex. First, I'm welcoming Angie Rowntree, who is the founder of Sh.com and an adult industry director who is going to share some of her insights and experience with us. Welcome, Angie.
Thank you. I would also like to take a moment and thank Sex Tech, Ola, you, Rachel, Alexis, and fellow panelists, Anna and June. It's a pleasure to be here. And I've been in the industry since the 90s and a lot has changed. So thanks for this opportunity to share.
Well, thank you for being here. I usually introduce it by saying I've been in the industry about 150 years, give or take.
I want to say I started when I was 4 because I feel that really.
You were a child entrepreneur.
I was, yes.
Welcome to Anna Richards, who's the founder and producer of the erotic platform Frolicking, and June D'Angelo, who's a research scientist, performer, and award-making filmmaker. I've just said one line about these amazing ladies, and I'm sure over the course of the conversation, they will add some context and depth to their backgrounds. So this group is pure power. It's an amazing topic. You are leading companies, creating content, and catalyzing conversations, working to be part of the, as we always say, the rising tide that raises all boats. So I know listeners are interested in how you got here. So I would like to ask each of you to share your origin story. So June Ann, I want to start with you. How did you get here? What was your catalyst? How did you come to be in this space? You know, I found over the course of my career, speaking to hundreds of founders, that, you know, no one at the age of 10 says, you know, I want to be a producer of an erotic platform, or I want to be, you know, an adult industry director. So maybe you guys are the exception, but I'd love to hear a little bit about how you come to be here in the business that you're in.
Yes, thanks for the question. So I guess with me, it's a little interesting because I was one of these, I was a person that grew up very sexually excited and interested and curious. And so I am a scientist for my profession. And so I think with that, I have just always been an extremely curious person, and that doesn't stop in the lab. It goes into all aspects of my life. And so for me, joining the world of erotic filmmaking was first as a performer. And then once you get in there as a performer and all those neurons start firing and you really get all of that excitement and passion and it builds, and then you start seeing production aspects and behind the scenes and script writing and building and character development, and you just want more. I couldn't say no. And so 20 years later, I've kind of made that transition from performer to actually producer and content creator, which has been extremely fulfilling.
And you really do understand the business from the inside out, from actually being the talent to managing and producing the talent.
Yes, there's a lot of aspects that you learn on the side of like production and direction. It's definitely a advantage coming from the side of a performer. Absolutely.
Angie, how about you? Tell us a little bit about your background of many decades in the industry and how you came to be the founder of Shush.com and an adult industry director. Am I saying that right? Shush.com?
I just always spell it SSSH.
Okay.
.com.
So since we're recording this, can I ask Angie the question again? I'll do it better this time. So Angie, as the founder of SSSH.com and an adult industry director, what was your path that you indicated you started many decades ago to get you here to this time and place as a leader in the business of sex?
Okay, so I started in the mid-90s when my husband launched wasteland.com, and the internet was such a different place back then. We were on an IP address. There was no domains, and coding was all done by hand. And you remember the little fire things, that the first little gifs of just a flame burning? That was just like the coolest thing ever. You had to have a lot of patience for that GIF to download in a Mosaic browser. I mean, that's how long ago this was. So fast forward to around 98, and we were at IA 2000, which was an adult trade show. And I was looking at the content creators, and I was asking them, who the disembodied penises belong to.
That's not a sentence you hear every day.
No, it's not. No, it's definitely not. And, I was saying, I was thinking to myself, was he enjoying himself? And who is he? And most importantly, who is she? Yes, I really believe that sex should show all the participants enjoying themselves and should show all of them, period. Don't get me wrong. There's no right or wrong way to tell stories or depict sex. So as long as it's safe, sane, consensual, and of course legal, it's up to each filmmaker to create the films that resonate with them. So when speaking to these content creators, and I was asking them about the perspective, I was told that women don't watch porn and that women aren't visual and that there was no market for porn made for women or even by women. It's a good thing I never listened. My mom would have oh, thank goodness she's not here. Yes, it's definitely been a journey. As for my inspiration, it's been my members. We've had a survey that's been going for 22 years where my members share fantasies and feedback. And that survey actually dictates all the content on Shush, not just the films. So we are 100% data driven. As a photojournalist, I was always taught to capture life's rawness and drama. And now I get to redirect that energy into capturing the rawness and passion in human stories and relationships. So Shush was never about me. I just wanted to always make a difference.
What's so interesting is I don't think many people would connect data and the creation of content for the erotic film industry. So for those of people who are new in this space or thinking about it, there is a business behind this. Ultimately, it is about making money, attracting customers, driving transactions, even if this feels or sounds like it would be different or more fun or non-traditional. Ultimately, all of us on the phone are involved in running businesses. So that's important to keep in mind. So Anna, how about you? Last but certainly not least, in terms of your journey.
Well, my journey wasn't, I'll be honest, I never necessarily saw myself in this space many years ago, but I found both through my own inquisitiveness actually and fascination, because I'm quite a creative. That's been my background, entrepreneurial creative, and looking at opportunities. And what I was always fascinated about was just looking at this changing technology side to the world of streaming, and I was suddenly seeing, because when I launched frolicme.com, it was back in 2015. And at that time, things were really changing apace in the world of streaming, of adult. So it was a combination of seeing that happen, seeing how I could see an opportunity to kind of disrupt what was going on there and embrace that new technology. But I didn't understand how in some ways the creativity was lagging behind the technology, because what I was seeing that was there en masse wasn't something that appealed to me. And I felt the time was there for a different creative view to actually show much more female pleasure, much more healthy sexuality, much more positive sex, and sort of, you know, I refer to it as socially acceptable sex online. You know, I think too many women, I mean, it's fascinating because we're all women here, but if we go back a few years, I think, you know, many women would actually find it very hard to know and navigate where to go to find something that would be acceptable for their vision and what they want. And I don't mean soft, I just mean what actually ticks our boxes. So I was always fascinated by the erotic imagery, and I didn't understand how we couldn't translate that across into films. So my journey was about, could I, as a creative woman who wasn't from the industry, could I take that erotic imagery, bring it to film, and create a socially acceptable platform that women and couples could come to, that was somewhere that they could feel safe, was trustworthy, was transparent, and actually really just changed the way we looked at sex online. So that was something that I felt, you know, we were missing, and there was an opportunity. That was back then in 2015, and I launched with 20 of my own films, which I thought was a huge amount, when I was then told by a leading producer. He said, my God, 20 films, you need more like 100 plus. So I was a bit kind of shattered at that start, you know, launching my 20 films. But from there, I built up and built up. So, you know, there's over 300 plus films I've actually produced with that vision, that Frolic Me vision.
Oh, that's amazing. So I came to the space having spent a lot of years working in women's businesses that affected them essentially from the tops of their heads to the tips of their toes. And then I became what I call an accidental vagipreneur, a venture capitalist who handed me a business plan for a product that improved arousal, desire, and satisfaction for women. And as a business builder, you're always looking for emotionally engaging content. And I'm sure you would all agree, there's few things more emotionally engaging than intimacy, talking about intimacy, sex, partnerships, erotica, whatever it is. So it was like manna from heaven that this was an amazing product that worked, that there was clearly a need for. So that's when I was off to the races. But unlike June-Ann, I don't think I ever thought this was what I would be doing. I always knew that I would be in business, but the fact that I've spent so much of my career, you know, in this space of femtech and sex tech has been amazing, but I wouldn't have predicted it. You had all talked a little bit about the change from either when you were a performer or from the time you started this business, what was happening from a technology perspective, or the kind of content you wanted to see. So Angie, for you, what is the vision? How does the data that you rely on translate into the vision that's driving the kind of content you create?
Okay, so it's such a big question. You know, do I talk about my filmmaking technique? Do I talk about, you know, the survey and the results that I've gotten from it? So, okay, let me start here. So filmmakers and feminist filmmakers have long discussed the female gaze, because that's really what is making what we're all doing a little different. It's a look, it's a certain look or perspective that comes from the filmmaker directly, or the people on the screen, or even what the viewer sees. And although we obviously can't say things like all women want to see something specific in their erotica, or even that all women filmmakers create content in similar ways, there is a unique flow and movement and focus that comes with the female gaze. To me, it's something much larger than how bodies are presented or how sex acts are depicted. My narratives revolve around female characters who are complex, empowered, and in charge. And not just in charge of their sexuality, but in a much larger way, in charge of their own life. They're people with compelling stories, big dreams, and worthy ambitions. We won't talk about Mirror Game. Sure, sex is an important part of that story, just as it's an important part of life, but the sex is there to carry the story forward as opposed to the other way around.
That's really interesting, and a way to think about flipping it on its head a little bit. And, as you're all talking, this idea of, one size fits all, which is what we had previously. I mean, it's really much more one size fits some, a different size fits other people, but there's the opportunity, and I think an openness now in the dialogue, that there's an understanding of different preferences, of different activities, of different tastes. Whereas, in 1990, there was one way we depicted it, and the world is much bigger and people are much more complicated. So June-Ann, I think I understood you correctly that are you still performing in?
Yes, I still perform.
So what is your focus as an actor and a scriptwriter? Are you writing things that you want to see? Are you getting information from viewers? How does that inform your performance?
So when it comes to script writing, so I've done some things that were a little more direct from the studio, what they wanted. Currently, I'm also working on a little bit more of an emotional script for the erotic space that I'm really excited about. But then kind of where my creation lies in the erotic film area, filmmaking would be, I kind of like to stay in the conceptual, experimental kind of genre. The film I created last, it had actually no dialogue or script. I am a huge fan of Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who is an author, and I love how he plays with symbolism to make a huge impact in literature and through his stories. And so I kind of, I think because as a performer, I've gone to so many sets where it was from the male gaze of position, position, position. And then I've gone and performed on sets that were directed by females where there was a lot more character development. And it was really about the storytelling. And so with my films, I like to just throw all of that out the window and really just approach it as an artist and not as a filmmaker. Or it's really about the idea and the concept that comes in my mind. And I kind of I selfishly create. I'm that person.
Why not?
Both Angie and June-Ann mentioned this concept of storytelling, unique stories, unique perspectives, complex relationships, and human beings. Anna, when you think about the storytelling, what are the stories that you most enjoy telling, or that people most enjoy seeing? And has that changed, since you started the business 6 years ago?
I think for me, I love playing with that sort of the little twist. What makes something go from being just a sexual act to actually being something quite kind of mind blowing? And it's all about what's going on in the head, So for me, it's what's that little twist, and understanding what's going on to make something just so erotic. So we also we don't really bring dialogue so much into the films as we do the stories, so that we actually run erotic stories to complement the films, to allow us to actually layer up that extra erotic vibe as to understanding who these people are, why they're there, what's happened before. Should they, is this an illicit encounter, or is this a hot wife situation? Is it very clear that he's with her, but who's this other guy? And it's, again, it's for me, it's always playing on that what just can send people a little bit over the edge, as it were, when they're watching. And I think this is something that when we talk about the male gaze and the female gaze, women are so much more into the fantasy, the lust, the desire. They need to understand so much more about why these people are connecting and how they're connecting, as well as showing them connecting. And I think that's what it is again, that little bit of difference between what we have portrayed in the past and what we're going on saying now about sex. It's about, firstly, it's about pleasure, and then it's about connecting these people together. So that's what we love to play with Frolic Me films, is that little nugget of what makes something a mind-blowing moment for both the viewer watching it and for those who are actually in the scene.
I'm curious. There was a lot of head nodding as each of you were talking and listening to the others. Have you seen each other's work prior to this conversation?
If I could interject, I just wanted to say, Anna, what you're doing is totally brilliant, and it's so unique. It's
Thank
great.
you.
Having the story around it, and you're right, because it's about character development. What happened before, what's going to happen afterwards, and then you're just showing you're putting people in that headspace, and then you're just showing it's brilliant. It's brilliant. Kudos.
Bless you. Thank you very much. That's quite something, because this is a lady who's been in the industry way longer than I have, so I appreciate that very much.
And June-Ann, have you seen their work? Anna and Angie, have you seen June-Ann's work?
I've seen both of Angie and Anna's work, and I mean, same sentiments as Angie. Well, I have to say Angie and Anna's work is quite different. So right there, you have two female gazes that are giving you a very different perspective. And I don't think you can go wrong with picking either on your evening, on your evening date.
So ultimately,
that's the beauty of it, is honoring filmmakers' vision. There is no right or wrong. It's your vision.
Yeah.
So moving from vision, which is really what's emanating from you, to this concept of a business, and we touched on it briefly. I mean, the name of the panel is The Business of Sex, and we've all heard stories. We've all been in the situation where in the spaces that we're in, it's more difficult to fundraise. You have limited access to advertising, and the list goes on. So I'm curious how each of you have figured out a way to overcome those hurdles and create sustainable businesses. I'm going to start with you, June-Ann.
So I think probably the thing that has helped me the most, and this is not, we're going to get a little guru-y, if you will, but it's just, you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be able to ask yourself hard questions. You have to be able to say no. And you have to know when you want to say yes and when that means something. So you just have to, I would say, being able to just honestly answer your own questions will get you so much further than any business class or any film school will get you, in my opinion.
And Anna, how about for you, translating this vision into a business?
Yeah, it's been challenging. I won't say it hasn't. And what's a shame is there's so much change out there. There's so much conversation going on. There's so much endorsements by celebrities coming out, sort of wanting to talk about sex. And it's fantastic. The media are great. They're behind wanting to talk about sex. But then there's that censorship. And this is where it becomes so hard, because that goes across so many aspects, where it's financial, whether it's social media, whether it's marketing. And it seems so unjust that when you're running a legitimate business, why you should be targeted in such a way and really, almost hankered back by actually being able to go forth that any other business would be able to do. But just because you're in the adult businesses, somehow they want to target you with higher charges, or suddenly pulling a mailing software company from under your feet. For what reason? There's this fear factor. So what's going to be exciting is when actually the censorship starts to actually pick up the movement of the people, and with more people interested in sex, there's more legitimate businesses that are being very open and transparent coming forth. There will be that moment when hopefully we can actually target this sort of censorship that is hankering us.
And you had mentioned a few of them, but it's also issues with payment processors and
Oh,
finding
it
banks.
goes on. Yeah.
Just think of,
Yeah.
for folks who are listening, think of many, many fundamental functions of a business that
Yeah.
for other folks are a layup. In this space, especially in the erotic space, you have to do a lot more bobbing and weaving to figure out how to build an infrastructure. And Angie, how about for you, from either a financing or particular challenges that you've had?
What was the original question? We kind of went off into credit card processing and challenges. I just went off into some other.
So, I mean, the initial question was, you're building a business. You're not
Right.
doing this as a hobby. Money
Right.
has to come in. You have to keep the lights on. Given all the challenges,
Got
how
my
have
answer.
you figured
That
out?
was it. I just needed the cue back in again.
Right.
Yeah.
How have you figured out a way to build
Yeah,
this
it's
into
just-
a business?
Yeah, just listening to my members, and continually innovating and giving them what they want to see. If your members have a vested interest in your site, if they enjoy their time there, that's all. That's it.
Yeah.
And then just, unfortunately have to toe the silly line or a company line and do everything that the credit card processors want us to do and jump through the hoops and everything. But it is what it is.
So for people who are listening, obviously you've all managed a number of different hurdles in your businesses. I would love you to share a piece of advice for the people who are listening to the panel. One piece of advice for people who want to build a business in this space or a related space. How about you go first, Angie?
Oh, I knew you were going to say that. Can I hide under my desk? Okay, so the films and experiences that we remember are the ones in our audience. Oh, sorry, let me try that again. The films and experiences that we remember are the ones that we and our audience connect with. And for that, you need vision, diversity, and most importantly, passion. So always be passionate about what you do and believe in it.
Thank you. Junann?
I would just say never be afraid to break the mold, because in this industry, especially, someone will always tell you you can't. And if everyone listened, there would be no adult industry. So just go for it.
Anna?
Yeah, I'd definitely say both of those. That having a braveness to go on and challenge things and actually step out of the norm. Do something that actually, this industry is always on trends. Things will change, and I see things changing in the world of sex. So be brave and don't sort of worry too much about should you be doing that. If you believe in what you're doing and believe passionately, then go for it.
And I would say don't take no for an answer, because someone will get your yes. You have all gotten people to say yes in different aspects of your business. And part of it is just staying in the race long enough until you get the yeses that you need to build something. So I want to thank all of you, Angie, Junann, and Anna, for joining us, sharing your experience. I know you could fill hours and hours with your expertise, but from the folks at Sex Tech EU, thank you so much for joining in this Business of Sex conference.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I don't know now if Alexis comes back.
Do we
when you
fade out?
Yeah, I think we can fade out. Thank you. We made it through with a few glitches. For me, it's a pleasure to meet all of you. I enter the space from a slightly different vantage point, but I hope I get the chance to work with each of you in the future.
It was fun.
It's great meeting everyone.
So, huge topic.
Have a good day, everybody, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Lovely chatting. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you so much. That was really actually had a lot to offer in solutions and perspectives on all the kind of facets that go around the business aspects of sex tech. And I really appreciate all of your time. Thank you, especially to Anna and Junann and Angie. And also thank you, Rachel, for moderating such a fabulous panel. So thank you everyone for joining. And with that, we will see you soon at the rest of Sex Tech 2021. Thank you.